Sometimes you don't know what it is that you need to do to get ready. You have to welcome things that are in the moment. After the people of God crossed the desert and over the river Jordan, they filled the land. Some of them began to live in Bethlehem. Many years went by. Then a time came when the wheat would not grow. And some of the people decided to cross the river Jordan again and go into the land of Moab. Naomi and her husband and their 2 young sons were among those people. In this new land, they were happy. But then the husband died, and that was very sad. The sons eventually married young Moabite women, Ruth and Orpah. When these husbands died, Naomi and Ruth and Orpah were widows together. Naomi didn't know what to do. So she decided to go back to Bethlehem. Orpah decided to go to Moab and live with her mother. Ruth stayed with Naomi, and she said, "Where you live, I will live. Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." They traveled through the desert, over the river Jordan, into a small place near Bethlehem. Ruth went to go work in the fields. She would gather grain from the fields that were already harvested. They let her do this because Naomi and Ruth were widows. One of the fields belonged to Boaz. He was a rich man, and he saw Ruth. He saw how hard she worked and saw how well she took care of her mother-in-law, Naomi. In time, Boaz and Ruth had children, and Naomi became a grandmother. Boaz and Ruth had a son, Jesse, and Jesse had many sons. One of Jesse's sons grew up to be the great King David. Now, here's the questions. Here's your first question. I wonder what part you liked best. These are easy questions, but they could also be difficult if you let them. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I like the part where connection and an inclusion of everyone. No matter where they're from, what God's used to do.
You like the part where there's connection, and it doesn't matter where people are from or who their gods are. Is that right? Maybe we can say it in the large group too.
I like the fact that Ruth stayed with him.
You liked that Ruth stayed with Naomi. Why did you like that part?
I like the way that she, the fact that she just gave herself to Naomi and put all of her trust in Naomi.
So she was, is this accurate, that Ruth was both selfless and trusting?
Yes. And wanted to, I believe, knowing Ruth so well as I do, that she wanted to care for her.
She wanted to care for Naomi, yeah.
Ian said his name is Mark.
Naomi's Ruth's dedication and her selflessness, her loyalty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that David, his great-great-grandson, her great-great-great-grandson, is who? Jesus.
There might be a few more generations, but
Yeah,
yes.
greatest.
Yes. That out of this love and kindness and loyalty, we get Jesus. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I like, well, all of it, but and I like the idea that Ruth, looked at the situation and thought, what do I need to do? She needed to go to work, and, so things would continue. And
So she could see what
she
was.
could see the big picture.
Ruth could see the big picture.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and act on it.
Trudy likes that Ruth could see the big picture and acted upon that.
I like that Boaz was willing to reach out and care for people in need, two widows.
That Boaz was willing to reach out and care for people in need. Yeah. Anybody else on Zoom?
Oh, James said he didn't give her food, but let her,
Yeah, it was almost like Boaz was protecting her reputation and her ego. He didn't just give her food, but let her glean from it. And he
Right.
entered into their lives in a gentle way. Yeah.
Did Boaz marry Ruth?
He did, yeah. I wonder what is the most important part of this story? You think it's all important? Mm-hmm.
caring for others.
Caring for others.
That's like a theme that runs through it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no bad guy.
There wasn't a bad guy. Yeah.
Which in today's movies, that's not a good thing. You gotta have a bad guy.
Right? That's a really, I just got goosebumps with that one. That was a good one. There's no bad guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it seems like it was probably written to show the lineage of David. I mean, I'm not sure it was written for any other reason, but I'm sure it was.
Yeah, so an important part of the story is showing the lineage of David. Yeah.
But also Ruth.
And Ruth,
David
right?
is her son, right? Or her
David is her grandson, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the importance of Ruth and Boaz.
Yes. The importance of Ruth and Boaz coming together, this stranger, this outside person being welcomed in and loved, and yes. Yes. So I wonder what part of this story is about you? Or where are you in this story? Mm-hmm. They get progressively harder. If you were 6, you'd be like, well, I'm in the crown. That's where I am. Where are you in this story?
I'm Boaz.
You're Boaz.
I guess I always have thought, well, I need to go to work,
Hmm?
whether it was a kid or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So you recognize, you see yourself in Ruth.
I mean, now,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I,
So Trudy is seeing herself in the work of Ruth. It's okay, you know.
You would?
no.
I think I am more Naomi than anything right now. My nephew's family's trying to take care of me.
So you're identifying, Christy's identifying with Naomi. Mm-hmm.
I don't have children, so
Mm-hmm. Well then, what part of this story could we leave out and still have all we need?
Well, I forget her name.
Orpah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There she is all by herself. Well, she's got a mom too. She's
Is
with
there
her.
any,
do we know what happened to her?
Other than that she went to go live with her mother.
okay,
Yeah.
but maybe maybe that's an important part of it. We don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
The fact that maybe that's why we decided it was more important to stay.
Maybe it is.
Oh.
It actually is part of the story.
Yeah.
Because you have to go
So
back to
where
the
were
world,
Ruth's parents?
your home.
What's that?
Where were Ruth's parents?
We don't know. I mean, she's Moabite, so you could guess that her parents, her family is in Moab.
And maybe she has more kids than, what was her name?
Ruth and Orpah.
Or
It's possible.
maybe she doesn't have any other kids. She might only have Orpah.
She might. We could write a whole lot of stories to fill in the gaps. I mean, you could study the book of any of these books for your whole life.
Ultimately, the church, or this church would not exist because in terms of Christianity, without that piece of long-term goals.
Yes.
That they ascended.
And if ultimately the church, this church, any church, wouldn't exist without this story. And, that it's a very humble story too. And in many ways, in some ways, it's very ordinary, which I think is an important thing to think about. So those are the classic godly play questions, but I have another question to add since we're all grown-ups here. These questions that we've asked and the answers that we've given, how do they reflect on who we are and who we think God is?
It seems like God was at the center of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think God often motivates people to do kind things. Sometimes they listen to that, sometimes they don't. But I think people often get nudges that we've got to go with Naomi, Boaz got to help her.
Mm-hmm. And it's not something that, we can answer it today, but it's also something to reflect on. If
Sorry, I missed one. Anne said, I am one of the other women working in the field with you, supporting.
that's interesting. So Anne is one of the people one of the other women working in the fields. Yeah.
Supporting Ruth.
Supporting Ruth, yeah. I mean, those women had to be hospitable and kind as well. I think I'm a fish in the Jordan River. And I'd like to take a moment to thank Cedar Hills United Church of Christ for letting me borrow their Ruth story.